3 insane secrets found in the woods at midnight that haunt you forever. The night was darker than coal, a moonless void casting shadows that danced in the flickering light of a single trembling flashlight. In the heart of Maplewood Forest, where even whispers seemed to shudder in fear, 3 secrets lay buried, hidden from the world, each one unraveling a mystery that haunted anyone daring enough to stumble upon them. Curiosity flickered like an ember, drawing in a group of reckless teens, hearts pounding as they stepped onto the damp, leaf-strewn path. Little did they know, they were about to unveil truths that would chill them to the bone. First, there was the tale of the Whispering Widow, a ghostly figure said to roam the woods at midnight, her cries echoing through the trees, laced with sorrow. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine as her breath caught in her throat. The legend told of a love lost, betrayal darkening the sky, and a promise made that bound her spirit to this lonely forest. Could she be out there right now, waiting to share her sorrow with anyone who dared to listen? The hairs on the back of Jake's neck stood on end, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Then, they stumbled upon an ancient tree, a gnarled beast wrapped in ivy, with strange symbols carved into its bark. Each mark seemed to pulse, alive with a secret energy that made them shiver. What did they mean? Were they warnings? Or perhaps, invitations to something darker? Tim traced a finger along the grooves, feeling the pulse of the forest beneath his fingertips. The surroundings grew eerily silent, as if the very woods held their breath, waiting. But the real terror awaited them just a few steps deeper into the shadows. An old, tattered diary lay half buried under twisted roots. Its pages whispered unspeakable horrors, entries from a girl who had vanished without a trace, a victim of the woods itself. The ink appeared fresh, the last words chillingly clear, "They are watching." Heart racing, Sarah glanced around, feeling their eyes upon her, the very trees witnesses to her growing dread. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the wind began to howl, whipping through the trees like a wild spirit, they realized the stories had power. The forest seemed to pulse with anticipation, and a sense of being drawn deeper into its dark embrace settled upon them. With each step, they felt their insecurities and curiosities twisted into one relentless force, pulling them toward an unknown fate. Was it a thrill-seeking adventure, or a desperate grasp for answers? The last flicker of their flashlight faded into a pinprick of light, leaving them engulfed in a suffocating darkness, one that begged a question: would they uncover the secrets, or would they become part of the haunting legacy that Maplewood Forest cradled so tightly? The darkness was no longer just a blanket, it felt like a living thing, pressing against their skins, tightening around them. Sarah's heart pounded like a wild drum, echoing in her ears as whispers began to swirl amid the trees, a cruel mockery to her mounting dread. "Did you hear that?" Jake's voice broke the tension, trembling as he swept the flashlight beam wildly. It danced across the twisted branches, revealing fleeting glimpses of the forest's sinister beauty. "Hear what?" Tim asked, his tone wavering, eyes darting nervously. The shadows twisted around them, pulling them deeper into despair. The whispers grew louder, swirling into a cacophony of distorted voices that wrapped around the group like an iron grip. Sarah felt the weight of their stare, that heavy presence watching, judging. She clutched the diary tighter, as if it might shield her from whatever haunted them. "Maybe it's the widow," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper, knowing her words would only invite more fear. Suddenly, a shriek pierced the air, raw and terrified. The sound shattered the uneasy quiet, sending a jolt through Sarah's veins. It was followed by a rustle, a disturbance in the brush that seemed all too close. Panic seized her. Surely, she wasn't imagining this. "Who's there?" Tim shouted, his bravado faltering. They huddled close, the light flickering ominously. Tension thickened as echoes of their own doubts reflected back at them. Then, as if conjured from the depths of their fears, a figure materialized between the trees. It was indistinct, cloaked in shadows, with long, flowing hair that seemed to dance and whip wildly on its own. The air turned frigid as it moved slowly, deliberately toward them. "Run!" Sarah screamed, her instincts igniting a surge of adrenaline. They didn't need to think. They bolted back down the path they had come, hearts racing, breaths coming in terrified gasps. The flashlight flickered again, barely illuminating the way forward. The whispers transformed into a chorus of laughter, cruel and mocking, an echo of every fear they harbored. Branches clawed at them as they rushed through the underbrush, leaves cracking beneath their feet like bones. Fear surged, thickening with every step they took deeper into the forest maze. Each corner they turned only led to more darkness, the oppressive weight of the forest threatening to crush their resolve. Just when they thought they might escape, the ground beneath Sarah's feet shifted. She stumbled, falling into a ditch that opened unexpectedly, her flashlight skittering away into the black abyss. Her heart raced in panic. It was over. Tim and Jake reached for her, their hands desperate. "Don't move!" Jake shouted, but the ground was betraying her, crumbling under the weight of their terror, pulling her down. The whispers quieted suddenly, replaced by an ear-splitting silence that mocked their fear. Sarah's hands clawed at the dirt, her body shaking as she realized they were surrounded, suffocated by the very woods that had promised secrets. With a shuddering breath, she choked out, "What's happening?" Tim's face twisted in horror as his flashlight flickered one last time, illuminating the trees surrounding them, each branch stretching as if to grab them, shadows casting faces that seemed alive with rage and sorrow. Before she could scream, a hand shot out from the gloom, clawing into the air right above her. It was then she understood, the secrets they read about were alive and they were hungry. With one final push from the unseen depths, a bright light burst forth, blinding them momentarily before everything went dark again. The silence enveloped them like a shroud, and Sarah could only wonder if they were truly lost or if they had awakened something that could no longer be put to rest. What would they discover when the silence shattered? Would they become mere echoes in the whispering trees, or fight against the forest's insatiable hunger? The horror was just beginning, and the night had more in store for them. The darkness pressed in even tighter, almost tangible, as if it were attempting to swallow them whole. Sarah felt the heaviness in her chest, a mix of fear and desperation as she scrambled to pull herself up from the cold, damp ditch. Tim and Jake scrambled down beside her, arms reaching out frantically. "Sarah! Grab my hand!" Tim shouted, panic slicing through his voice. She could barely see him through the blinding darkness, but there was a glow, a dull, pulsating light faintly visible from the depths of the forest, just beyond the trees. They were right there, just a few feet away from something unknown, yet so captivating. "Do you see that?" Jake whispered, fear mingled with a hint of curiosity, both frightening and intoxicating. "Focus," Tim urged. "We need to get out of here first." The urgency cut through the haze and pulled Sarah back. She grabbed Tim's outstretched hand, feeling strength surge through her as he yanked her up, but the moment of safety was short-lived. Just as they managed to pull her from the ditch, the eerie silence shattered again. A guttural growl reverberated through the air, low and menacing, like an angry beast disturbed from its slumber. "What was that?" Sarah's voice trembled. "I don't know, but we can't stick around to find out." Jake echoed, his eyes darting in every direction. They took off, hearts pounding harder than ever, desperately plunging deeper into the woods where the strange light beckoned. It flickered softly, tugging at their curiosity against the overwhelming instinct to flee. Each step felt like they were getting closer to something monumental, both terrifying and irresistible. As they moved forward, splintered branches whipped at their skin, a painful reminder of the forest's merciless grip. The laughter of the whispers rose once more, chilling their bones. Suddenly, a vision sprang into Sarah's mind, the diary. The words had been etched with warning and terror. What if the stories were more than folktales? What if they were warnings? A figure loomed in the shadows of the trees, standing impossibly still beneath the almost blinding glow. It was darker than the night, an outline that seemed to absorb every ounce of light. Fear gripped Sarah's throat, tightening with each step toward whatever this was. "Stay close," she whispered harshly, feeling the pull of the light, her own heart racing with the allure of discovery. Tim and Jake nodded, muscles taut with tension as they moved as one, each movement heavy with the weight of impending danger. Then, without warning, the light burst forth, illuminating the area around them. What they saw sent shocks through their veins. There, suspended in mid-air, were images, faces twisted in anguish, shadows of people caught between this world and the next. It was like a gallery of despair, each face trapped not only in time but within this cursed forest. "God, are those?" Jake began, his voice barely coming out as a whisper, trembling. "Are they real?" Sarah finished, feeling bile rise in her throat. The whispers morphed into horrific shrieks, reverberating through the air, pulling them closer to the truth they feared. As they backed away, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The light pulsated brighter and brighter, illuminating the tortured souls before them, the sounds wrapping tighter around their minds until they felt like they might crack. "What do we do?" Tim gasped, terror reflecting fully in his eyes. Before anyone could answer, the ground split open. An inky blackness surged toward them, bubbling and seething with a hunger that seemed both primal and ancient. They had trespassed too far. The angry force of the forest was awake and ready to consume them whole. "Run!" Sarah screamed once more. But as they turned, fleeing toward the promise of safety, the weight of the whispers clung to them, filling every crevice of their minds with chilling echoes of a truth that promised despair. In the chaos, Tim tripped over a root, the darkness swarming closer. Sarah grabbed at him, both of them tumbling forward as Jake's frantic shouts echoed in the night. What if they didn't make it out? What if this dreaded forest held on to them forever, becoming their final resting place? The thought chilled Sarah to her core. As they fought against the dark tendrils reaching for them, Sarah's breath caught. A thought struck her harder than the forest itself. What if they were not meant to escape? What if the woods didn't want them gone? With her heart racing, she reached into her pocket, feeling the diary's familiar weight. Could it unlock the secrets they had awakened? Then came another shriek, a closer, more bone-chilling cry that drowned out their thoughts, as if the forest was demanding an answer. Their options narrowed with each frantic beat of their hearts. Would they confront the horror head-on, or would they disappear, echoing into nothingness? As the darkness closed in, Sarah could only wonder, what awaited them at the edge of despair? And could the answers lie hidden within the very pages that had guided them into this twisted fate? The darkness swallowed their screams as the ground roared around them. Time felt distorted, suspended in the heaviness of fear. They scrambled, the roots clawing at their ankles, desperate to pull them down into the abyss. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She had never felt so alive or so terrified. "Sarah! We can't stop. Keep running." Jake's voice sliced through the chaos, a lifeline wrapped in desperation. They didn't have the luxury of thinking, they only had the urge to survive. The inky blackness shimmered with an odd allure, almost mocking them as it reached toward their heels. Panic surged through Sarah's veins, pushing her feet to move faster, drawing her focus back to the glimmering light ahead. The glow was becoming brighter, pulsing rhythmically, promising some kind of salvation or doom. "Where do we go?" Tim gasped, glancing over his shoulder. His face was a mask of determination mixed with dread. "It can't get any worse, can it?" "What? You want a closer look at the faces?" Jake shot back, a chilling edge to his voice as fear mingled with sarcasm. But as they ran, it became painfully clear, the darkness was not just chasing them, it was alive, intent on consuming them. They raced forward, breathless, and the ground quaked again beneath their feet. Shadows danced in the light, flickering before them like tormented spirits yearning to escape their prison. "Help us," a voice echoed, sweet yet laced with a sharp chill, drawing Sarah's gaze. Was it a figment of her imagination? Or worse, a cruel trap set to ensnare them? "Don't listen," Tim yelled, pulling her back just as she faltered, the plea wrapping around her consciousness like a noose. They stumbled back, once again enshrouded in shadows. The ground cracked open again, but this time, something broke through. A skeletal hand reached up, its fingers elongated and claw-like. It clawed and clawed, desperate for freedom, as horrified gasps erupted from the trio. "Oh God, are they dead?" Sarah's voice trembled on the edge of disbelief. "Just keep moving," Jake yelled, his eyes wide with horror. "If we stop, we're done for." But the light drew them in like moths to a flame. They plunged forward, urgency thrumming through their limbs. A rustling sound behind them made their hearts skip, followed by faint whispers that called their names, coaxing them to turn around. "Sarah!" The sound of her name shivered through the air, wrapped in an echo of lost loves and forgotten desires, coating her in unease. Tim's grip tightened on her arm, grounding her. "Focus on the light," he cried, and they pressed on, adrenaline coursing. The glow flickered with newfound intensity, revealing the grotesque scenes once more. Faces twisted in terror hung like a grotesque gallery, pleading silently while the shadows writhed like angry serpents. "What if they're all just like us?" Sarah blurted, realization crashing over her like a tidal wave. "What if they thought they could escape too?" "Shut up. We can't think like that," Jake replied sharply, but doubt seeped into his tone. The truth was hitting them hard. They were not the first to stumble into this nightmare. Ahead, the pulsating light became a beacon, bright enough to penetrate the thick veil of darkness. But as they neared, the light shifted, no longer welcoming, but now strident and foreboding. "Something's wrong," Tim muttered, his instincts flaring. The shadows coiled tighter around their feet. Without warning, the light flickered violently. 1 second it was there, the next, it swirled into a gaping maw, pulling them closer and closer to oblivion. "Run!" Sarah screamed, but the dark tendrils lashed out, wrapping around Tim, yanking him back. His eyes widened in shock as he was pulled away from them. "Tim!" Jake's voice broke, but the darkness swallowed the sound, despair drowning hope. "Fight it!" Sarah yelled as tears streamed down her cheeks, images of those faces flashed in her mind. She lunged forward to help, grabbing at him, but it was as if the air shimmered with a barrier, pushing her back. Panic surged anew as Tim's screams echoed a chilling melody of struggles against the void. "Let go of him!" Sarah cried, desperation ripping through her limbs as she lunged toward the light, determined to save him, but the darkness only laughed, a sound that rippled through the night, and just as it seemed there was no escape, the diary slipped from her pocket, landing open on the forest floor. The moment it touched the ground, it glowed with an eerie vibrance. "What?" Jake gasped, eyes widening as ethereal words danced on the pages, their spirit radiating through the heavy air. Sarah's breath caught, her heart racing as she realized the diary might be the key to banishing the darkness, or it might seal their fate forever. With a mix of hope and dread, they all looked at the diary, wondering if revealing its secrets would save them or if it would lead them down a path of deeper despair. "Do we trust it?" Jake asked, voice barely a whisper, engulfed by the rising shadows. "Do we have a choice?" Sarah replied, feeling the weight of the moment press down on her like a suffocating fog, and as the ground trembled beneath them once more, they braced themselves for the choice that awaited: a leap into the unknown or a surrender to the dark. What secrets lay within the diary's pages, and would they be enough to save Tim, or would they lose him to the whispers of the forest? The shadows whispered again, a chorus of voices merging in a sinister harmony that reverberated through the air. The echoes reached for Sarah and Jake, wrapping around them like icy fingers. They hesitated, the glowing diary pulsing with an urgency that broke through the thick haze of panic. "Jake, we need to make a decision," Sarah implored, her eyes darting between the diary and the dark tendrils thrumming in rhythm with the throbbing light. "We can't just stand here. Let us read it," Jake shouted, desperation lining his voice. He bent down, the ghastly shadows curling around his legs, seeking to drag him under. He grabbed the diary, flipping through its pages that fluttered like trapped wings. The words inked on the yellowed pages glowed faintly, illuminating their faces. "It's telling us something," he yelled over the cacophony, the urgency of the moment pressing down on them. "It speaks of sacrifices, portals binding the darkness." "What kind of binding?" Sarah's heart raced as she leaned closer, her breath hitching at lines scrawled in frantic handwriting. "It can't be what it seems, I don't care. We need to do something before," but he didn't finish the sentence, the air thickening with dread as another tremor shook the ground, forcing them both to stumble. "Tim!" Sarah cried, her voice raw. The night air seemed to thicken with despair, her ears ringing with his distant screams. Images of his terrified face clawed at her insides. "Focus. You have to focus," Jake shouted, holding the diary tighter as if it possessed some hidden power. "There has to be something we can use." The words began to swirl before her, each letter carving itself into her consciousness. Then she saw it, a passage about sacrificing the anchor, a term that felt heavy with meaning. What did it mean? She gasped, drawing closer as a thought ignited within her. Do we have to give something up, something or someone tied to this darkness? That doesn't make sense. Jake countered, desperation fueling his words as shadows slithered across the ground, inching closer, their chilling laughter echoing in her mind, weaving threads of doubt. Tim's voice crept back in Sarah, "Help." Each plea gripped her like a vice, tightening around her heart. "We have to choose," she insisted. "The only way to save him might be to confront whatever is holding him." "Are you sure?" Jake's expression flickered with doubt, but love flickered in his eyes, an ember fighting against the gathering storm. "I have to be. It's the only chance we have," she affirmed, determination shining through her fear. The ground quaked violently, and shadows danced like a frenzy of vipers, not just waiting but aiming to strike. "What if we fail?" Jake's voice trembled, his grip uncertain as if he were afraid even to hold the diary. "I can't keep running," she said. "We have to face it, now." The energy around them surged, the darkness responding to their resolve. With a deep breath, she positioned her fingers over the glowing words of the diary, feeling the strange warmth against her skin. She began to chant the passage aloud, her voice trembling yet growing stronger. As the incantation bounced back from the trees, the shadows writhed, angry tendrils snapping and curling, resisting her call. In a furious flurry, they lashed out at her, and she stumbled backward as Jake stepped in front of her, bracing himself against the onslaught. "Keep going," he shouted, gritting his teeth as shadows whipped around him, clawing to break through. A surge of power coursed through the air, igniting the ground as flames of light erupted from the diary, illuminating the faces of the tortured souls that surrounded them. "Tim!" Sarah cried, feeling the grip of the darkness weaken for just a moment as she gathered her strength, pushing harder against the dark abyss. But just as hope surged, the tendrils responded with a vengeance. "No! No! No!" Jake shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos as he was yanked back, the shadows tightening their hold like chains. A horrifying realization gripped Sarah as she stood helpless, the glimmer of the diary dimming under the weight of their struggle. In that moment of confusion, the shadows cleaved apart, revealing a glimmering door behind them, pulsing with bizarre energy. "Sarah! Go!" Jake shouted from the darkness, his voice barely audible against the wind, and his figure began to dissolve in the shadows. "No! I won't leave you!" She screamed, tears streaming down her face, the warmth of hope collapsing into fear as the light beckoned with the promise of escape. "Just go." And with that, the darkness took him, and she felt the loss slice through her like a dagger. Heart racing, Sarah turned toward the door, its luminescence beckoning her forward. But lingering over her was the question that burned like a brand: would she abandon everything for a chance to escape, or would she dive into the depths to save the ones she loved? The choice loomed, and just as she weighed her options, a figure appeared behind her, one that sent shivers of recognition through her. Sarah, the voice rasped, a mixture of hope and warning that wrapped around her heart like cold steel. What she thought was a path to freedom could become a trap, and the darkness might have more to reveal than they ever dared to imagine. Could she face what was coming, or would she lose everything, even her chance to uncover the diary's ultimate secrets? A cold shiver raced down Sarah's spine as the voice reached her ears, echoing familiar yet unreasonably terrifying. She whirled around, catching sight of the figure emerging from the shadows. It was Tim, his features distorted in the dim light, frame flickering like a faulty projection. "You shouldn't have come back," he breathed, his eyes wide with a haunted glimmer that shook her to the core. "Tim! I thought I lost you." She rushed towards him, but the shadows writhed between them, thick as fog, and her heart sank as they coiled around his legs. "It's not safe here. The darkness, it wants you," he rasped, his face warping with fear, making it hard for her to breathe. "I had to warn you." The ground beneath her feet quaked, splitting with a growl that sent her stumbling back. The diary flickered in her hand, the pages now revealing frantic scrawls that weave tales of ancestral curses and relentless bonds. "But I can't just leave you," she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "You have to," Tim insisted, shaking his head vehemently. "Let the darkness have me. You're the key, Sarah. You must complete what we started. You must open the door." He pointed shakily to the shimmering doorway behind her, the air around it buzzing with raw energy. "But at what cost?" Her brain raced with horror. "I can't lose you again. Not like this." More shadows slithered into her peripheral vision, whispers growing louder, almost urging her to step back through the pulsing light. Sorrows and sacrifices washed over her like a wave, making her limbs feel heavy. The diary mentioned an anchor. "You can't be listened to me," Tim shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos, trembling yet commanding. "Whatever the connection is, whatever the darkness has over me, you're its true enemy. You have the power to confront it. To bind it." His words struck her like lightning, and as her heart raced, she saw fleeting memories of laughter shared and moments of lightness dissolve under the weight of loss. "If I let you go, do it now." Tim's shackled figure seemed to flicker again, the light dimming against the crushing shadows that bled into the space between them. "You have what it takes, Sarah. You always have." With terror swelling in her chest, Sarah felt the gravity of her decision pressing down like a mountain. The swirling dark, desperate to reclaim her, whispered promises of safety and power, while the echo of Tim's voice tugged at her heartstring, a reminder of love tested by darkness. "I don't know if I can do this," she said softly, doubt lacing her words. "Have faith," he replied, his voice steadied, imbued with an urgency that silenced the shadows, if only momentarily. "Trust the bond we share. It's stronger than all of this." A deep breath filled her lungs, determination igniting her resolve. Suddenly, the room lit with a bright flash as she planted her feet firmly, the radiance from the diary illuminating Tim's weary face. "I want to let you go, not like this." She glared at the door, preparing for the leap, but just before she dove, the darkness surged forth, wrapping around her like chains, chilling her to the bone. "You'll regret this," it hissed, echoing with a chorus of lost souls. As she continued chanting the incantation, a tempest of light erupted, battling to pierce through the shadow-laden chaos around her. The longer she focused, the more energy she felt coursing through her. "This ends now." In that moment, the shadows roared back, a cacophony of torment that crashed into her mind like waves. "Sarah!" Tim's voice sliced through the noise as he reached for her, the distance closing, threads of darkness trying to separate them. She pushed harder, forcing the words from the diary to wrap around her heart. The light responded with vigor and purpose, symbols around her blazing brighter as power surged. "Tim. Everything erupted in a vortex of light, engulfing her. In a frantic last moment, she felt it, the tether between them, the ache of love and loss anchoring her soul, then silence, the world twisted and she vanished, pregnant with uncertainty and hope. And as darkness threatened once more, another figure stepped forward from the shadows. It wore a familiar face, his eyes glowing with otherworldly knowledge, casting light upon all that had been hidden. "Are you ready to uncover the truth?" it whispered, and in that moment of revelation, dread washed over her anew. What did it mean to unlock the secrets of the past? Would she face the echoes of history or lose everything she loved forever? The silence enveloped Sarah like a thick shroud, muffling the pounding of her heart. Uncertainty lay heavy on her shoulders, yet she stood facing the figure that had emerged from the dark. Its familiar features were unmistakable, but something felt deeply off. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's me, Sarah, but not who I used to be," the figure replied, stepping closer. It was Tim's face, but twisted with an unnerving light, radiating a cold chill that settled deep into her bones. "I've learned what lies beyond. What the darkness truly wants." "Tim?" She stepped back, breath catching in her throat. "What happened to you? Where are we?" "We're on the threshold, Sarah," he said, his tone almost melodic, laced with a power she hadn't heard in a long time. "It's not just the darkness that seeks to unravel. There are secrets trapped in this realm, entangled with our fate. You must listen carefully." Sarah's pulse quickened as dread and curiosity battled within her. How could she trust him? "What do you mean, secrets?" The figure raised a hand, glowing with a soft, eerie light that illuminated the surroundings. The shadows writhed ceaselessly, whispering in a tongue she couldn't understand, like a thousand swirling thoughts trying to escape. "There are 3 truths hidden here, each marking a part of our connection." "3?" she echoed, her voice a whisper. "What are they?" "The first is the source of the curse. It echoes through our family, binding us to this place and its torment." He paused, glancing at her with sorrowful eyes. "The second reveals who has really controlled everything from the shadows. Those who sought power at the expense of our lives." Tension coiled in Sarah's chest like a steel trap. "And the third?" "The third," he continued, a grim smile creeping onto his lips, "is tied to you, Sarah. You are not merely the key, you are the anchor they will try to seize. With you, they can break free." Panic flared. "No. I want to let them take me. I want to let them take you, again." "Listen carefully," Tim said, his voice urgent now, "to unlock your power, you must know where you truly stand. Gather strength from your love," and remember. His words faded into a haunting echo, the air crackling with tension. The past has a way of catching up. As if summoned by his statement, shadows spiraled, growing darker, thicker, more consuming. The air crackled and split, and Sarah felt her resolve wafting away like smoke. "Fight it." Tim's eyes glinted with urgency. "The echoes of our past may haunt us, but they can also guide you. Find the truth, or we'll be lost in this darkness forever." A desperate rage ignited in Sarah's chest, mingling with ferocity. They had endured so much pain, so many losses, and now, they were standing on the brink. The diary in her pocket pulsed, a silent reminder of her connection to the fate ahead. Although fear coiled around her heart, she felt warmth seep in, desperation transformed into resolve. Just as the shadows surged, thick and hungry, she shouted, "I'm ready." Light burst forth from her, radiating fiercely, illuminating Tim's form, but in an instant, something unexpected happened. The shadows shrieked, a chorus of tortured souls, thrashing against her light. As she held her ground, a figure obscured in darkness moved through the shadows, locking eyes with her. This one lacked Tim's haunting familiarity, its gaze deep and predatory. "You think you're ready, Sarah?" it jeered, voice slithering like a serpent. "You have no idea what you're up against." And just like that, an unsettling truth rooted deep in her chest. Were they fighting against the past or awakening a horror she couldn't see? A horrific realization dawned. Something worse than darkness awaited her, lurking just beyond the veil of comprehension. As the dim light surrounded her again, Sarah braced herself, knowing the real battle was about to begin. What other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be uncovered? Would the truth empower her or lead her to doom? The shriek of the shadows clawed at Sarah's mind, a cacophony of anguish that reverberated like 100 voices mourning their forgotten lives. An unbearable pressure enveloped her, an icy grasp threatening to drag her back into the abyss. She staggered, the light she had summoned flickering as chaos swirled around her. "Don't let them in, Sarah." Tim's voice tore through the turmoil, grounding her in the moment like a life raft in a stormy sea. "Focus on the truths." She swallowed hard, trying to steady the frantic beats of her heart. "Which truth should I seek first?" The question trembled on her lips, desperation coating every word. "The first truth is always the hardest," he replied, gaze steady though shadowed. "The source of the curse. You must confront it before you can move to the next." As the shadows writhed and danced around them, an unearthly chill shadowed her spirit. Memories flashed before her like dim lanterns, faded images of laughter, warmth, and the tug of excitement mixed with the undertow of sorrow. But there had always been something lurking in those happy moments, a flicker of dread. "Why didn't I see it earlier?" she muttered, the weight of realization thick on her tongue. "Because you didn't know what you were looking for," Tim said softly, vulnerability piercing the authority in his voice. "Your heart was blinded by love." The shadows began to form shapes, grotesque versions of faces she recognized from her past, family members, friends. They seemed to reach for her, mouths moving in a silent scream, pulling at the threads of her reality. Fear clawed at her throat, but another string tugged at her heart: remembrance. "Mom," she whispered, a name bursting forth from her lips. "Is it you?" The reflection shimmered momentarily, then twisted into agony. "Sarah, you must break the cycle." It echoed, resounding through the darkness, a haunting melody of dread. "You are the one with every breath." The shadows crept closer, each twist of their forms intensifying the suffocating air around her. "What cycle?" she cried, anger and sorrow merging into defiance. "They want your essence, to feed their darkness," Tim warned, clenching his hands as if to draw strength from the ground beneath them. "Remember your love, it holds the key to the first truth." Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the diary nestled in her pocket. The darkness recoiled, as if struck by a beacon of light. Heart racing, Sarah pulled it out, her fingers trembling. The worn leather felt warm against her skin, pulsing invitingly almost like a heartbeat. "Open it," Tim urged, desperation resonating in his voice. "It's your connection to the truth." The shadows shrieked again, this time with a sound that sliced through the air like glass shattering. It echoed her fears, each shard of sound threatening to flood her mind with doubt and despair. Heart pounding, Sarah opened the diary as the pages flipped wildly, stopping suddenly on a drawing of her family tree, thick with inked branches twisting into dark fullness. There, at the center, was her name, marked by a single line, a rip across the letter. "What does it mean?" she asked, panic bubbling up once again. "It means you're the point of collision." Tim's voice faded momentarily, devoured by the shadows. "And only by facing the origins of the curse can you cut the line that binds you." With forced determination, she steadied herself against the tide of shadows, carving her will into every inch of her being. "Then show me," she shouted into the swirling void, fierce and unwavering. In an instant, the ground beneath her trembled violently, succumbing to her fierce call. The faces of loved ones fell silent, waiting with dread as if holding their breath. The shadows stretched, recoiling as a deep, growling laughter echoed through the void, a sinister promise of the trials yet ahead. The air trembled as an ancient, low voice whispered, "You think you can unveil the hidden? You will pay dearly for your search." As Sarah braced for the turmoil that was about to erupt, she steeled herself for the unfathomable truth awaiting her. What had she Unleashed, and what sacrifices would it demand? A chilling thought crossed her mind. Would her courage betray her freedom or lead her straight to her grave? The night had only just begun. The ground shook again, but this time the vibrations felt different, more alive, almost primal. The shadows hissed, coiling around Sarah's ankles like serpents ready to strike. She could taste the bitterness of fear on her tongue, and with it, a determination surged within her. "Show me!" she yelled once more, channeling the raw energy thrumming in her chest. "If I'm the point of collision, then let me collide." With her command, the darkness erupted, twisting the air into chaotic shapes that seemed to scream and beg for release. Visions flooded into her mind, vivid and grotesque. She saw her childhood home, nestled among the trees but draped in a shroud of decay. The laughter she remembered so fondly turned to grotesque echoes, twisting into something sinister. "Remember your love," Tim urged, and she felt his presence behind her, a sturdy anchor against the storm of malice swirling around them. A sudden clarity hit Sarah. "I loved them. I loved them so fiercely," she shouted, the words bursting from her lips like flames. "But I was also so afraid of losing them." In an instant, the shadows paused, as if considering her admission. They hesitated, allowing a thin line of light to slice through the darkness, illuminating a path. Sarah took a tentative step forward, heart racing as she followed the glimmer. With each step, the faces of her past morphed into something more defined, painful memories sewn together like a tapestry, each stitch a reminder of her unresolved guilt. "This is it," she breathed, recognizing a moment frozen in time, the last family gathering, laughter mingling with untold sorrow. There was her mother, bobbing in a sea of happiness, but her eyes whispered secrets of grief, shadows lingering just beneath the surface. "Sarah, you must break free," the apparition of her mother whispered urgently, her face a collage of love and pain. "Do not repeat our mistakes. Why didn't I listen? Why did I turn my back on the truth?" Sarah cried, the memories clawing at her. "I thought I was protecting you, protecting me." Tears blurred her vision as anguish washed over her like a chilling tide. "They cannot take what you refuse to give." The shadows shrieked, morphing into a menacing vortex, their whispers rising in an angry crescendo. "Feed us." "No!" Sarah shouted, clenching the diary tight to her heart. She could feel it vibrating like a living thing, urging her towards the truth. "You don't own me." The shadows recoiled, snarling with rage and confusion. They were the embodiment of her regrets, her fears, but also the lessons of her past. Realization dawned: if she stood strong against the onslaught, she might cut the chains that bound her. As she reached the edge of the darkness, energy coursed through her veins, igniting her spirit. "I choose love," she yelled fiercely, taking a deep breath. "I choose the light." The words echoed, reverberating against the void, sending shockwaves that shattered the glassy tension in the air. Light exploded from her heart, a brilliance that consumed the very shadows that sought to ensnare her. The cries morphed into cries of anguish, pain splitting the air as darkness was consumed by brilliance, but just as hope glimmered, something caught her attention from the corner of her eye, a shadow darting away, darker than the rest, a long figure slipping through the grip of her newfound light. "Wait! No, don't let it escape!" she screamed, but it vanished into an unseen crack within the dark. "I can't let it go," she whispered, dread knotting in her stomach. What had she just seen? Tim's hand gripped her shoulder, grounding her again. "You did well, but we're not finished. There are still deeper truths lurking. You need to find it before it finds you." Her heart raced as reality crashed back in. The battle against the curse was not over. The shadows were only retreating to regather their strength. And as Sarah stood at the precipice of the chaos, she knew the next step would demand even greater sacrifices. Would she be ready to confront the shadows of her own heart head-on in a race against time? The hunt was on, a race against darkness, and she could feel the chilling breath of the unknown breathing down her neck. What if she didn't find it in time? What secrets lay waiting to be unleashed? The silence that followed the blinding light felt deafening, pressing against Sarah like ocean waves after a storm. She blinked against the sudden brightness, catching glimpses of familiar faces around her tormented souls, suspended between worlds, their eyes wide with anticipation and fear. Tim stood beside her, his presence steady, anchoring her as he once did. "Did we do it?" she whispered, her voice raw with exhaustion and lingering trepidation. But even as she asked, a gnawing sensation curled in her stomach. The darkness felt thinner, but the weight of what lay ahead loomed heavy. "We've only scratched the surface, Sarah," Tim replied, voice steady yet fraught with tension. "We still need to uncover the last truth before the darkness regroups." She felt the energy shift, shadows dancing with renewed fury just beyond their reach. Panic fluttered in her chest. What if this was a trap? What if the darkness bent and twisted their efforts, laying a snare for them? "Show me where to go," she said, clenching the diary in her hands, the same diary that contained the echoes of so many lives. As if awakened by her words, the pages flickered and glimmered, shining brighter than before. Each inch of ink swirled and shifted, revealing another passage, this one dangerously familiar. "A sacrifice lies at the heart of the curse. This will reveal everything," Tim gestured, his face a mask of determination tinged with fear. "But it's going to bring pain." The shadows shrieked again, clawing at the threads of their resolve. "Let us not waste any more time," Sarah urged, forcing her will through the terror. "Let us end this together." In response to her command, the diary glowed, pulsating with warmth that radiated through her veins. Again, she began to speak, reading the incantation tightly woven with her ancestors' agony, her voice a beacon in the shadowy storm. As the words flowed from her lips, the air crackled. The shadows recoiled, the anguished faces shifting uneasily, and they began to converge, focused on the tapestry of energy forming before her. Tim watched, fear swirling in his eyes, as darkness coalesced into tangible forms, figures she once recognized. "Mom?" she gasped, horror sinking into her chest. The memories surged as her mother emerged from the shadows, face twisted in sorrow. "No, you shouldn't be here. This isn't your fight." "I'm bound to this place, Sarah," the apparition whispered, each word dripping with the pain of regret. "And so are you." "No. I won't allow this." The horror of her mother's fate crashed through her, awakening the deepest fears buried within. "Not again." The shadow figure reached out, desperate. "You must understand, love is a double-edged sword. Sacrifice is the thread that binds us. Your sacrifice can break the cycle." Tim's grip tightened on her shoulder. "You can't. This isn't the answer." But it wasn't just fear that gripped her heart. Beneath the layers of anguish was clarity. If she wanted to escape the forest's cruel grasp, she would have to confront the roots of her pain. "I can't be afraid anymore, not if this is what it takes," she declared, her voice steadying. With resolve, Sarah stepped forward. "I'll break the cycle." The shadows writhed around her, reaching closer, seeking her acceptance, as she embraced the warmth of the love within her. "I will do it for you, Mom. I'll end this pain." In that moment, light surged from her heart, a flood that wrapped itself around her mother's entity. The shadows shrieked, their cries rising into a cacophony, swirling like a tempest. "No!" they wailed. "You belong to us." But Sarah's voice pierced through their torment. "I choose love. I will not let you take what you don't own." The energy exploded outward, consuming the darkness, illuminating everything, the anguished faces shifting and transforming, dissolving in the light's embrace. Sarah felt a weight lift, the darkness dimmed, flickering and retracting. But it wasn't just the shadows that receded. Memories flooded back, love intertwined with loss, weaving through the memories of everyone she cared for, binding her spirit with light and hope. "It's working." Tim shouted, amazement in his eyes as reality began to reshape around them. But then came a chilling realization. From the edges of the obliterating shadows, one figure darted away, the wispy shape she had seen earlier. "Wait!" she cried, lunging toward it. But the shadows fell back into their abyss, consuming the space the moment before it could vanish. "No!" Tim shouted, terror lacing his features. "It got away. We need to go after it," Sarah insisted, heart racing with dread. If its escape meant a resurgence of the darkness, they couldn't afford to hesitate, but even in this moment of clarity, fear gripped her heart. What had they unleashed? What price would be demanded for this newfound freedom? A sudden shift beneath their feet pulled her focus back to the turmoil. The world shook, wagging a threatening finger. Tim pulled Sarah closer, his voice urgent. "They're regrouping. We can't let it escape your grasp again, or we may never get another chance." And just as the darkness began to reform around them, she felt a rush of instinct propel her into action. "Together!" she shouted. "We face this now. Step into the light, Tim." Tim nodded, fear caught behind the determination surged in his eyes. With one final chant, they pressed forward, intent on reclaiming the life snatched by the shadows. With hearts entwined in hope, they moved through the remnants of despair, seeking the truth, ready to confront the final secret, and all of the darkness that had come to claim them. Now it was time to unravel the mystery that threatened to consume not just them, but the very fabric of their lives, a moment that would decide everything. Would the truths bind them or free them? As they plunged into the depths of uncertainty, one thing was clear: they wouldn't stop fighting until every shred of the darkness was confronted. The final reckoning awaited them ahead, and together, they would face it. But before they could uncover the truth, a sudden crack erupted through the air. The darkness roared its fury, rushing to reclaim what had slipped through its grasp. "Go!" Tim yelled. "We must break through together." And Sarah screamed into the void, "We will not be afraid. We will find the light." The battle between light and darkness began anew, shattering the silence, each choice paving the way toward their fates, echoes of their loved ones guiding them toward salvation, and that is where their story truly began. If you've enjoyed this thrilling journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now. It really helps the algorithm by getting this adventure in front of more amazing people like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support and be part of our fantastic community. Your engagement makes a huge difference.